The quiet hum of the Boeing 777 engine wasn't nearly as loud as the cold, condescending sigh that escaped his lips. He didn't just look at me. He appraised me like a stain on his bespoke tailored suit. A wealthy Korean tech scion, accustomed to first-class cabins clearing out at his mere command, standing over seat 4B with an expression of pure, unadulterated disdain. When the flight attendant politely asked if there was a problem, he spoke in sharp, clipped English, refusing to even glance back down at me. I requested an open row. Move her or buy out the cabin. He genuinely believed money could erase my presence, that his wealth gave him the power to dictate who deserved to occupy the same air as him. But what he didn't realize was that the flight wasn't owned by the airline anymore. It was owned by my parent firm. And before this 12-hour flight from Seoul to Johannesburg was over, the man who refused to sit beside me would pay millions just to secure a single minute of my undivided attention. Welcome back to Soul Sauce, your home for the most intense, gripping, and unpredictable Afro-Korean stories on the internet. Before we dive into how this arrogant mogul got the wake-up call of his lifetime, take a quick second to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you do not want to miss a single second of this psychological showdown. Drop a comment right now below letting me know. What would you do if someone tried to buy out your plane seat just to get away from you? Let's jump right in. Incheon International Airport at 2 a.m. possessed an eerie, liminal beauty. The sprawling glass architecture reflected the cold neon glow of late-night departures. But inside the private lounge of first-class Gate 12, the air was heavy with unspoken hierarchy. I sat near the floor-to-ceiling windows, nursing a warm cup of honey citron tea, clad in a comfortable beige cashmere jumpsuit and a head wrap woven from traditional rich Nigerian silk. To the casual observer, I was just a weary traveler preparing for a long haul. To the board of directors at Vansose Global Logistics, I was Amara Osei, the newly appointed chief managing partner tasked with restructuring cross-continental supply lines across East Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. Then he walked in. Ji-won Kong, executive director of Kong Enterprise, a conglomerate known as much for its generational wealth as its ruthless corporate acquisitions. He moved with the practiced posture of a man who had never been told no in his entire 32 years of existence. Tailored charcoal suit, slicked back hair, an expensive gold watch gleaming under the recessed lighting, and an aura so stiff with arrogance it sucked the oxygen out of the room. He was accompanied by two assistants carrying leather briefcases, hanging on his every muted Korean syllable. When Ji-won scanned the elite lounge, his eyes briefly brushed over me. There was no subtle shift, no mask of polite neutrality. Just a sharp, dismissive flicker of his eyelids. A look that instantly classified me as someone who had somehow wandered into the wrong realm of privilege. I saw the slight downturn of his lip, the subtle movement of his hand motioning his assistant to step between his field of vision and my table. I merely smiled into my teacup. Arrogance is always loud to those who know true power. 30 minutes later, boarding was called for first-class cabin A. I walked down the carpeted jetway, handed my boarding pass to the purser, and stepped into the quiet luxury of the upper deck. My seat was 4A, a window suite equipped with plush leather, partition walls, and private lighting. Directly across the aisle was 4B. Ji-won boarded moments later. He handed his coat to the flight attendant without looking at her, stepping into row 4. The moment he realized 4A was occupied by me, he stopped dead in his tracks. The atmospheric pressure in the cabin dropped. "Is there an issue, Mr. Kong?" the lead stewardess asked smoothly, holding a tray of warm towels. Ji-won spoke in a clipped, low tone, speaking past her as if I were invisible. I specifically requested the entire center-left block to remain unoccupied. My assistant confirmed the seat next to mine would be vacant for confidentiality reasons. Sir, this is a fully booked international flight, the purser replied politely. Ms. Osei is seated in 4A. Ji-won finally turned his head, his dark eyes locking onto mine for the first time. The gaze was cold, sharp, and dripping with thinly veiled entitlement. I am not sitting next to her, he said flatly. Move her to business class. I will cover the price difference twice over. The purser blinked, caught off guard by the blatant rudeness. Sir, we cannot forcibly downgrade or move a first-class passenger who holds a valid ticket. Then quote me the price for the entire section. Ji-won interrupted, pulling out a black corporate card, his tone dripping with dismissive authority. Buy out her seat. Buy out the row. I want total isolation. I leaned back against my leather headrest, crossing my legs slowly, meeting his piercing gaze with absolute calm. The seat isn't for sale, Mr. Kong, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the silent cabin. And frankly, your money couldn't afford my comfort. He stiffened, his eyes narrowing as he registered my tone. Unbothered, commanding, and completely unimpressed by his wealth. If you are loving this intensity so far, don't forget to subscribe to Soul Sauce right now. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another dramatic story drop. And drop a comment down below with the word respect. If you love seeing an arrogant mogul get put in his place. The silence that followed my statement was deafening. The flight attendants froze, looking between the powerful Korean executive standing in the aisle and the calm African woman relaxing in Suite 4A. Ji-won's jaw tightened, a flush of irritation creeping up his neck. Never in his life had a woman, let alone an outsider in his view, spoken to him with such cold, effortless superiority. You don't know who I am, Ji-won said quietly, stepping closer to my sweet partition, his voice dropping into a menacing whisper. I know exactly who you are, Ji-won Kong, I replied smoothly, taking a sip of sparkling water. And more importantly, I know who owns this aircraft. This Boeing 777 was wet leased 3 days ago by Vansosei Global. So technically, Mr. Kong, you are a guest on my plane. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly. The name Vansosei clearly hit a nerve. For months, Kong Enterprise had been trying to secure a multi-billion-dollar trade agreement across West Africa, only to be repeatedly blocked by an elusive, anonymous logistics titan that held exclusive maritime and air rights. He had spent weeks trying to track down the executive behind the blockade. He was looking right at her. You! Ji-won breathed, the arrogance in his stance wavering for the first time, replaced by a sudden, sharp calculation. Sit down, Mr. Kong, I said softly, looking back down at my digital tablet. Or feel free to take the jump seat in the galley. The choice is yours. Unable to process the sudden shift in power, Ji-won reluctantly took his seat in 4B. But his pride was mortally wounded. For the first 2 hours of the flight, he sat in rigid silence, furiously typing on his encrypted laptop, trying to find a way to regain control. I could feel his gaze burning into the side of my face every few minutes. He was accustomed to dictating the terms of every room he entered. Yet here, thousands of feet above the clouds, he was trapped in a perimeter he could not command. Midway through the flight, as the cabin lights dimmed for the night, G1 unbuckled his seatbelt and motioned for the purser. I watched out of the corner of my eye as he handed her his phone with a private directive. Moments later, the purser walked down the aisle, politely requesting the passengers in suites 3A, 3B, 5A, and 5B to relocate to the VIP upper loft. A move G1 had just quietly paid over $50,000 to arrange. He was literally buying out every single seat around me, creating an eerie, unnatural ring of empty space. He thought he was isolating me. He thought he was demonstrating his financial dominance by building a wall of empty chairs. When the purser finished moving the last passenger, the entire forward cabin section was vacant, save for seat 4A and seat 4B. The silence was absolute. G1 leaned back, adjusting his cuffs, a small, victorious smirk playing on his lips as he looked across the aisle at me. "Now," he murmured in a smooth, velvet tone. "There is no one left to interrupt us." He hadn't bought those seats to get away from me. He had bought out the entire section to trap me in a private room with him. If your jaw just dropped at that twist, smash that like button right now. Are you Team Amara, or do you think G1 has something up his sleeve? Let me know in the comments section down below. Make sure you are subscribed to Soul Sauce so you don't miss the epic conclusion coming up. The shift in the cabin atmosphere was instant. What had started as an act of arrogant prejudice had morphed into a deliberate, high-stakes game of psychological chess. By clearing out the surrounding rows, G1 had removed all observers, transforming the public space of first class into a private pressure cooker. "You think you're very clever, Ms. Osei?" G1 said. Unbuckling his seatbelt and standing up, he didn't return to his seat. Instead, he stepped into the aisle right outside my suite, leaning lightly against the frame, his tall frame blocking the soft ambient light. "You let me believe you were just a random passenger, so you could enjoy watching me make a fool of myself. You made a fool of yourself the moment you assumed my worth based on your own biases, Mr. Kong," I said without looking up from my screen. "I didn't have to lift a finger." G1 stared down at me, his intense dark eyes searching my face for any sign of intimidation, any flicker of hesitation. But he found none. I met his gaze directly, holding it until a subtle flicker of uncertainty crossed his features. "My company needs the logistics clearance in Lagos and Port Harcourt," G1 said, his voice dropping into a raspy, dangerous pitch. "Your firm has been stonewalling my board for 6 months. I offered double the market rate, yet your office refused to even take my calls. Because Kong Enterprise doesn't respect local partnerships," I answered calmly, setting my tablet aside. "You operate like a conqueror, Mr. Kong. You buy up space, push people out of the room, and demand submission. Just like you tried to do when you walked onto this flight." G1 took a slow step closer, his hands resting on the edge of my seat partition. The sheer proximity was electric, a strange mixture of corporate tension and intense personal friction. "And what if I don't want to conquer?" he asked, his tone shifting from cold corporate arrogance to something far more intimate, almost predatory. "What if I want to negotiate?" "You can't negotiate with someone you tried to eject from the room 15 minutes ago." "Then I'll buy the room," he whispered, leaning down slightly so his eyes were level with mine. "I'll buy the entire airline if it means getting you to listen to me." "You still don't get it?" I laughed softly, leaning forward until our faces were only inches apart. "Money buys seats, G1. It doesn't buy respect. And it certainly doesn't buy me." He froze. The close proximity, the scent of vanilla and sandalwood surrounding me, and the unyielding authority in my voice hit him like a physical blow. For a man who had spent his entire life surrounded by people pleasing him, my refusal to yield wasn't just shocking, it was intoxicating. What a moment! If you are enjoying this intense face-off, show some love by hitting that like button and clicking subscribe to Soul Sauce. We post the best Afro-Korean drama stories every single week, so make sure your notifications are turned on. Comment Soul Sauce below if you are watching this right now. For the remainder of the flight, the dynamic completely flipped. The psychological cage G1 had built by buying out the section hadn't trapped me. It had trapped him. Surrounded by empty seats and absolute silence, every word, every breath, and every movement was amplified. He couldn't focus on his work. Every few minutes, he would glance over, watching me quietly review operational reports, drink tea, or gaze out at the dark clouds below. The cold, aloof scion was visibly unraveling, haunted by the realization that he had met an immovable object in a world where he was used to being an unstoppable force. As the plane began its long descent into Johannesburg, the cabin lights slowly came up. The purser stepped forward with customs forms, but G1 waved her away, his focus entirely locked on me. "When we land," G1 said, standing up as the seatbelt sign turned back on, "I want to take you to dinner." I raised an eyebrow, a slight smile touching my lips. "Is that an order, Mr. Kong?" "It's a request," he corrected immediately, his voice lacking every trace of the arrogance he had displayed when boarding in Seoul. "A sincere one. I made a mistake when I walked onto this plane. I misjudged you, and I treated you with unacceptable disrespect." "Apology acknowledged," I said, gathering my personal belongings into my leather handbag. "But a dinner won't fix your business proposal." "I'm not asking for dinner to talk about business," G1 said, stepping into the aisle as the plane wheels touched down on the tarmac with a soft rumble. "I'm asking because I have spent 12 hours in a cabin with a woman who completely shattered my perception of power, and I refuse to let you walk out of my life the moment this door opens." I stood up, adjusting my head wrap, standing tall and meeting his eyes with effortless grace. "Then you'd better be prepared to work for it, G1. Because in my world, you don't get to buy your way to the head of the table. You have to earn your seat." A rare, genuine smile broke across G1's striking face, a look of newfound admiration and fierce determination. "Then name your terms, Amara." "I'm not going anywhere." As the jetway connected and the cabin doors opened, the arrogant mogul who had refused to sit next to me stepped aside, holding back the curtain and waiting patiently for me to walk ahead of him. The flight was over, but our game had only just begun. Thank you so much for watching today's story on Soul Sauce. Did G1 get what he deserved? Or do you think Amara should give him a chance at dinner? I want to know all your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Stay tuned for the next chapter of their story coming very soon.